this next lecture, we're going to be talking about editing. I always recommend having your book professionally edited. No writer can successfully catch all the mistakes in their work. Believe me, I've seen so many authors who regretted not having their work professionally edited when they were first starting out. If you don't have your book edited, this can often cost you a lot in the way of sales and will earn you a lot of bad reviews from readers who will be put off if your work is littered with spelling and grammar mistakes. Let's talk about the different types of editing. There are 3 different types of editing. The most common being copy editing, which is also known as line editing. This is where an editor looks at things such as spelling, grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, and the overall flow of a book. This is the most common form of editing that most authors have done before publication, and something I definitely recommend getting done when publishing your first book. The next type of editing is content editing, which is also known as developmental editing. This is much more in-depth form of editing. It doesn't focus on things such as spelling and grammar. It focuses on the structure and flow of a book, as well as the characters and the writing style. As this is the most in-depth kind of editing available, it's also the most expensive. It can range anywhere from $500 upwards, depending on the editor you decide to go with. I usually recommend, if you can, to have your book content edited before publication, especially when you're first starting out. This is really ideal for first-time authors because you can work with an editor who's experienced in your chosen genre, and they can help your book become the best that it can be, as well as having copy editing done as well. The next type of editing is proofreading. This is the cheapest and most basic form of editing available. It doesn't involve looking at the story structure or characters or the content itself. It's mainly just basic editing where the editor looks for spelling and grammar mistakes and to make sure everything is consistent. So depending on what type of editing you decide to go for, definitely at least have proofreading done, or copy editing if you can, to weed out any kind of errors and remove any kind of mistakes in your book. The cleaner your book is at the time of publication, the better. Now, before you send your book off to an editor to be edited, it's always good to do some self-editing beforehand. The cleaner your book is when it goes to your editor, the better, really. Some writers really hate self-editing because they find it a challenge. How are you supposed to delete your precious words after you've written them? I usually recommend not self-editing your book until after the first draft or second draft is completed. If you try editing before that, as you go along as you're writing the book, this will often destroy your creativity and make it harder for you to finish writing your book. Here's a few suggestions on how to self-edit. The first being, print out your book and read it out loud. Reading your book out loud is great because you can hear what the book actually sounds like by reading it back to yourself. This is a great way of finding mistakes and awkward sentence structure within your book itself. Or if you don't want to read it yourself, try a free text-to-speech software to read your book for you. Microsoft Word has this feature in it now in the 2016 version and other latest versions, or you can use a software such as Natural Reader. This software is free, where you can download it onto your computer and just copy and paste your chapter into the software and it will read it for you. Natural Reader is great because it actually has some more natural sounding voices than programs like Microsoft Word. Another good way of finding errors is to try reading your book backwards. This may sound a bit strange, but by reading your book backwards, it can actually help you find errors and any potential plot holes within your book. Or another way of checking for spelling and grammar mistakes is to use spell check within Microsoft Word or whatever word processing program you use. Spell check isn't perfect because it won't recognize if a word is spelt in the wrong way, but it's a good place to start before you send your book off to an editor. Or you could use another free tool such as Grammarly, which is great for finding spelling and grammar mistakes. Or you could even try using a style guide. A style guide is like an academic book. It's used by professional editors to show them how to edit a book in a certain way. There are lots of different style guides out there. Here in the UK we have the Oxford Style Guide, and in the United States they have the Chicago Manual of Style. Style guides are great for editing your work and showing you how things should be spelt or presented a certain way. Or you can use a good old-fashioned dictionary or thesaurus if you have trouble with spelling and grammar. Here are some problem words to look for when you start your self-editing process. A lot versus a lot, there versus there, can versus may, good versus well, lay and lie, affect and affect, its and its, into and into, who and whom. Now these are all common words which a lot of writers can get mixed up and make mistakes with, so there are a few common ones to look for when you start beginning your editing process. Now, where do you find editors? Now we've gone over the different types of editing and the self-editing process, it's time to start looking for an actual editor. Now I know a lot of authors might struggle to find an editor because you may not know where to find one. But finding an editor isn't that hard. One of the great places to start is by asking other authors. If you're part of a local writing group, ask the authors there who they use for editing their own books. Or you can search on freelance sites such as Upwork.com or Fiverr. These are all sites where freelancers work and can be found, and you can usually find an editor on there for a reasonable rate. When you start looking on sites such as this, have a good look at the feedback. See what other people have written about these freelancers. If they have great reviews, this is usually a good indication that they will be a reliable and helpful editor. When you do start looking for editors, I also recommend getting a sample edit done. Whatever author editor interests you, ask the editor if they can do a sample edit for you. A lot of editors will either offer to do a small sample edit for free, or some do it for a small fee, but whoever you decide to go with, definitely get a sample edit beforehand. This will give you an idea of not only their work and their editing style, but if they will be a good suitable match for editing your book. Or you could try joining a critique group. Lots of areas have critique or writing groups. You could even ask your own writing group to critique your book for you. Or look on social media sites such as Twitter or on Facebook. Facebook has dozens of groups on there where editors offer their services, and this can be a great way of also getting recommendations from other authors. Okay, I'll see you in the next lecture.